With Brooks Wackerman in bloom just a short distance away, and with you now being clued up about the early lives of the young monsters that make up Avenged Sevenfold, it's time to continue this bumper debut episode. You're welcome, by the way. Make sure you're subscribing because it helps the band and all of us behind the scenes. Anyway, it's time to continue this bumper debut episode by learning about the earliest days of the band and the OC scene that shaped them. Straight up legendary shit.
When I got that knock on my door from Nick DiBiase, who was the drummer in Matt's band Successful Failure, he said, hey, you come to our band practice. I was like, sure, you know? So we either jumped on our skateboards or rode our bikes, and we went to Matt's house.
Me and Zach wanted to start the band. We felt we could make something that we were falling in love with hardcore at the time. H2O, Sick of It All, VOD, Poison the Well, all those 18 Visions were at our school. You know, James Hart and those guys were at our school. Brandon Chipetti and Bleeding Through. And there was all these bands that were just, we all went to school together. And we had guitar class together, and I was a freshman and they were older, seniors. And so I wanted to play hardcore, but I still wanted to play punk rock. So we started talking to Zach, who was in another band as well called MPA at the time. And we wanted to start something a little heavier. And so then we had to go convince Jimmy to play with us because he was playing with older people at the time because he was so much further ahead in his instrument than we were. We convinced him to play with us, but he didn't take it very seriously. And so the first practice was me, Jimmy, and Zach in my living room. And that was our first practice. And I had written a song called Thick and Thin. And it was in the Sounding the Seventh Trumpet record. It was the first song I had written for this band. And it was very hardcore, youth of today, you know, like brotherhood, you know, stick together, unity. And it made it on the record eventually. You know, it was the first songs we ever made. And that was our first practice.
They had a 2-car separated garage, and they let him take over one of the garages and put up a bunch of punk rock posters and set up drums and a PA that he had stolen from somewhere that I can't say where. I guess the statute of limitations is probably up, but he'd stolen a PA system from somewhere close by and set it up. So I go in there, you know, I'm nervous. You know, when we're 14, I mean, Matt's already like 6 foot, you know, piercings. Fucking dude probably had forearm tattoos at 14. I'm not even fucking around. Like, and I'm a kid who had just moved from Washington. You know, I grew up in Downey, California, but then I moved to Washington for a year, which things were kind of weird. A lot of jocks and preppy people. So I was kind of an outcast. Came back to California a few days before I started my freshman year in high school. And I'm in this punk rock fucking haven garage with a bunch of equipment, and fucking dude has a fucking half stack. I've never seen that, you know, where I come from, kids don't have half stacks, fucking PA systems, drummers that can play. And they close the garage door, and I'm looking around like, holy shit, this is it. This is fucking what a band does. And they start playing. I think Matt was singing like Dear Lover from Social Distortion, and then he played like a Bad Religion song. And he fucking literally sounded 100% like Mike Ness and fucking Greg Graffin, and he's 14 years old, and I'm thinking, holy shit, this is the fucking best thing I've ever heard. Because, you know, kids fucking sound like wieners. They got a drummer that's playing in time, and they have a fucking half stack cranked up to 10. And I'm just sitting there thinking, this is fucking it. Like, just knowing these guys, I just hit the jackpot.
While Zachy is way fucking right about hitting the jackpot, and it's great to hear those stories about the young Avenged Sevenfold, I can't just let that go. Rewind, hold the phone for a second. You are telling me that the young M Shadows had tattoos at the age of 14. I don't mean to sound like whoop whoop, that's a sound of the police, but really? Can we clarify that with the man himself?
My first tattoo was an H2O tattoo. I loved H2O, and it's a band that this guy Nate Buechler and a bunch of the hardcore kids at Huntington High School introduced me to, and I just loved the message. I loved everything about it. So I got an H2O tattoo, and then the addiction started. I started getting stuff all over my legs because I could hide it, right? I wasn't playing basketball anymore, so I could wear pants everywhere and just hide this. And then one of the moments when I got kicked out of the house and was living at a friend's house, I went and got tattooed on my forearm. And I was like, I don't care anymore. It's time for it to come out, like whatever, blah, blah. And then my dad calls me and goes like, okay, we're ready to have you back in the house. Like, let's just make it better. And I'm thinking, oh shit, now I'm going to walk home with this freaking huge True Chill death tattoo on my forearm. And so, of course, I walked home with a long sleeve shirt on for like a few days until finally they're like, I heard you've got tattoos all over your legs. And then, because someone had told them, like a parent had heard. I was like, yeah, I got these. And they're like, as long as you don't get any on your arms. And I already had this thing. It was already like healed, right? I'd been hiding it. And then I show them that. And they're like, how about never on your neck? And I'm like, I can't make any promises. Sorry. But yeah. So the tattoos were definitely like a strange thing. But what's so funny? It's like, all you have to do is get some tattoos and then prove everyone wrong that tattoos they don't mean anything. It is what it is, right? And society was changing. And to me, we were maybe on the cutting edge of this new world where it didn't matter. But that's very hard for parents to see, especially from their upbringing.
Jimmy brought me what is Pinkly Smooth. I mean, there's a couple of songs that I wrote that I'm very proud of that are on the EP and stuff like that. For the most part, I can't take credit for that. I was just very lucky to be brought a very exotic, wild, avant-garde style of music in which I could apply my studio musician mentality to a crazy amount of techniques and dissonance and weird behaviors because we listened to the same music, I introduced him to Sparks. He introduced me to Mr. Bungle. We both grew up listening to Danny Elfman. We had all these different things, He introduced me to Primus. He knew of Frank Zappa, of course, but I don't think he listened to as much Frank Zappa as maybe I did, but I'd play with Frank Zappa. So we had all this avant-garde upbringing that we shared and exchanged with each other. And Jimmy started playing this shit on the piano with heavy Danny Elfman influence, which I was obsessed with at the time. But I didn't want to play original music. I just didn't think I was capable of it, nor did I even consider it, have any interest. I was in school to follow my dad's footsteps in studio music. So when he brought this to me, I had no clue he was playing piano at this level. I had moved back in with my dad for the last couple of years to bang women and sell drugs successfully. That was those 2 years. At the end of my high school, I was expelled from school, did a whole bunch of horrible shit. And because once I got my license, I'm like, when I go to music college, when I go to GIT, that's when I'll get my shit together. But I didn't pick up a guitar for 2 years. Of course, I could have worked and bettered my craft, but I didn't. And Jimmy came to me with this he was woodshedding, playing incredible music, writing incredible music, but I had no interest because he wasn't singing. I knew he had a great voice. He would scream and do Pantera, Michael Jackson. To me, I always knew what constituted a great song. It wasn't even necessarily great harmony, although if you could bring advanced harmony to something like that and a brilliant melody, you have Steely Dan, but it didn't matter the chords. It was all about the melody. Who out there is capable of writing a magical melody? And I didn't think that I was. He brought piano music, great, cool, but I'm not interested in that because I'm not hearing magical melodies. And I told him that up front. I was like, if you want to do this shit, like who's singing, what's happening? Well, I don't know. I play the drums, but who's going to play he had no concept. He just wanted me to write guitar for this. And I was happy to do so. He would sit there for hours as I wrote the parts and wrote them down in practice for music school. That very night, he went home and wrote the melody, one of my favorite melodies of all time for the bridge that I was really into. I wrote this funk thing for in the bridge of Mesmer. Ding, 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 ding. I wrote this crazy, goofy, what I thought was infectious, groovy style, rhythm part. And then he came back with searching for some better things to occupy my time. And I wish that they were blind. So I sat down a good friend of mine. I sat down a good soul of mine and saw fit to pour the wine. He had the lyrics too. And they were like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. Fascinating lyrics, the most brilliant melody I'd ever heard. I quit everything. I was following this fucking genius into whatever oblivion he wanted to fucking lead me into. wanted to be with Jimmy wherever he was at. I mean, there wasn't a time where we didn't just talk shop at all times. We were booking shows. We were talking about who we wanted to manage us and where we were going to go, what we were going to do. It was just nonstop. And then I guess behind the scenes, Matt bugging is, and maybe Jimmy used that word, but they wanted a drummer. And like Matt was very ambitious. And the great thing about Matt is for as competitive as he is, and he's an alpha male, competitive, crazy bastard, he wants what's best for the band at all times. From what I understand, Matt had asked him a few times, Jimmy was not interested. So pursuant to a point where Jimmy's like, fine. I'm like, okay, well, that's totally cool. Play in the band, because it didn't do anything to Pinkley Smooth. We were still whatever, but Matt was now hanging out with Jimmy and I guess a little bit more, and kind of vice versa. Instead of maybe every other weekend, we were hanging out kind of all the time. And my girlfriend at the time and Jimmy had an apartment in Long Beach. So that's where we just went and partied every single night.